the first Sunday service we were there. And then throughout the youth camp, we sang this song quite a bit. And it was kind of their youth group's favorite song to sing. We're going to attempt to sing some of this in Romanian. It's going to go good, because you guys have no idea what we're singing anyways. But so you'll have no idea if we sing it right or wrong. One of the great things that helped is we did have Ashley Zekman along, and I didn't realize this until we got on the trip, but she can actually play her guitar in Romanian. And so that was a tremendous blessing to have on the trip. And she does really, really well with that. And so we're going to sing a song for you entitled Light of the World.
Well, Romania was definitely not exactly what I expected, but it was a lot nicer there, and the people were very kind and pretty open to us. The food there, it certainly looked pretty interesting, but it tasted really good. They always fed you as much as you wanted, and they always tried to give you more than you could eat.
sorry to hear that you guys had to work in the brutal heat. The weather over there was great. We put on a youth camp. Didn't have to do a lot of work except for a lot of walking and running around. I was a team leader for some reason. Trying to explain to my team what they do was a little difficult. Although I did have an interpreter, I think she was the best one that knew the English, which was, well, for me. Overall, the services were great. No one wanted to leave. It was awesome. The activities were all right. I'm not really good at soccer. Too much running. One of the humorous things at the orphanage, we were there playing around with little ones there, and one of this little guy went and got a volleyball. The Americans were there hitting it back and forth. Someone decides to hit it real sky high, bounces and goes over across the fence of the neighbor's yard over there. And they're like, oh, we can't go over and get that ball. The lady over there will take a knife and pop it. Like, oh. So we didn't know what to do, and then all of a sudden this little guy from the orphanage went over and got the ball and came back over. We're like, oh yeah, we give him high fives and good job. And we're standing around, and then Timmy him and this little boy were talking in Romania, and we're standing around and we're like, this isn't really good, the way they're talking. Come to find out, this little boy got in trouble. He got a point, and he's like, oh, that was not a good influence on our part. And he came out with the excuse he was going to blame it all. It was the Americans' ball, it wasn't theirs. And he had everything worked out. But it was a great trip. I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Well, Romania was a very good trip. The scenery was amazing. Mountains are steep, but the youth camp was a good youth camp. We had a lot of fun. Levi was my team captain, so we didn't have it put together. But the language was different. We had a different barrier, but we had a lot of good food. They gave you a lot of food. So, and flight, me and Terry almost didn't make it because I had Schlene's ticket and Terry had somebody else's, but we made it through. The trip was great.
Keeping it short and sweet, so maybe I'll do the same. I really did enjoy my trip. It was very good, probably one of the best missions trips I've been on. My team was Team Moses. Terry was our captain, and they told us all that we got to pick out our names, and so we were like, what should we do? They said it had to be a name of a book in the Bible. Well, the kids didn't get the translation correct, and so they thought it had to be a person in the Bible, and so they're all like coming up with names, and one person's like, well, let's go with Moses. And we were like, that's not exactly a team name. It's more like the Israelites or the disciples or something like that. And they're like, no, let's go with Moses. So we went with Moses, and it started out with us Americans going, let's go Moses, cheering. And they didn't really cheer very good, except for when they did, they'd say hi, which means go. And none of us Americans knew that, and we'd be like, hi! And they're like, wrong hi. I did that a few times, but it was good. And so we went with the name Moses. And so by the end of I think by the end of the week, we were annoying everybody else because we had this one kid on our, Terry would always go, let's go Moses! And then this other kid, one of the Romanians, picked it up and he started going, let's go Moses! And then all the other teams' kids started picking it up and they really liked it because it was a catchy phrase. And so even the disciples and the Israelites would be like, let's go Moses! And it wasn't even their team, but it was good. I definitely enjoyed getting to know the kids. I didn't know what to expect. I've been to Spain, and so that's like over in Europe, and it wasn't third world country, like most of the places we've gone. And so I didn't know how it would be, if it would be more like Spain or more like Honduras or something. And it ended up being a lot similar to Spain and stuff like, there's some differences, but it was very good. I really enjoyed it. We didn't have too many glitches or anything. I think the biggest problem was Marie Spangler's suitcase got lost in the airport, and they told us they'd try to get it to us before camp, but we didn't know if that would happen. We were really all hoping and praying, well, it didn't happen. And she had to go the whole week with what she had in her carry-on, which was only like 2 outfits, and then whatever Sally was able to give her. And we found out, I think, right as soon as we got to camp, we found out that it had actually arrived at Sally's house as soon as we got to camp. So she was good. She made it. She did very good. We only had to do laundry one time all week, so it was very good. I definitely enjoyed it. I made a lot of good new friendships with the kids there. They were very accepting and very open and getting to know you and stuff. It was kind of sad. Our last day, I'm not keeping it short, but our last night there, we had an activity with the youth at, I think it was supposed to start like 7:30, and we didn't get back into the house until like 11:30, 12, because the kids would not leave. They just stood there and cried and cried and cried and hugged us and cried, and then everyone else started crying in our group. And this one little girl came up to me crying, and I couldn't cry that night. And she comes up crying, and she's like, Phoebe, and I started laughing, and it was the wrong thing to do, because she looked at me and starts crying harder. She's like, Phoebe! I was like, I'm so sorry. But it was good. I really enjoyed it. God really helped us in the services. It was just a good trip.
First of all, I want to thank you all for the opportunity that you gave me to be able to go on this trip. Everyone got along great and made the trip very enjoyable. Our time in Romania was very amazing. The young people that came to the youth camp were very awesome. And I was so happy to see different ones choose to serve God. The new friends I made there have a place in my heart, and I hope to see them again. Most importantly, I hope that they will choose to make it to heaven, where we will never have to say goodbye again.
I'm thankful I got to go on this trip. It was a really good time. Everybody got along good, and one of the main things I discovered while I was there, it doesn't really matter what culture you're in, the presence of God is the same. The devotional services, we really had the presence of God coming down a couple of times, and you could just really feel it. And we had several kids that chose to follow God during that time. We had some interesting times playing the games and all. I got to ref volleyball, which was quite fun. Trying to keep score sometimes was a little difficult, and then the kids would try to correct you in their own language, and it kind of made things a little bit confusing every once in a while, but we had a good time. And also, Anna and I, we were in charge of the Bible baseball, and we discovered that we come up with all the verses ahead of time, and we got there and we found out that, which we were a little worried about it anyway, but found out their translation of the Bible is a little bit different than ours, and we come up with several verses that didn't quite work out because, well, we chose for the verse to leave a blank or something, a certain word, and we found out that translation of that word's not even in their Bible, or if there was that word, it might be down a couple of verses further, so we had to kind of improvise there and make things work out, but it all went good, I think. And also we had to come up with the scavenger hunt riddles, which was very fun. I think the whole team enjoyed the scavenger hunt. We got it together pretty much in 2 evenings, and it was a lot of work. But it went very well. We had to have one of the 10 there. He had to translate all of our riddles over into Romanian, and I was getting a little worried because he kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, telling me he'd do it later, and then right down at the last minute here he was trying to scribble them out real quick, and I didn't know how his translations were, but they must have worked because they seemed to have figured it out pretty much. So I figured out something else also while I was over there. Terry and Clayton, they come close to not being able to make it, but they probably have missed out because once they're over there, they really found out they were girl magic. So I mean, the girls just like flocked to them, and they're all telling them how cute they were, and they could have picked anyone they wanted, but but anyway, yeah. But I was thankful for the privilege to get to go on this trip, and I'm thankful for everyone who helped make this trip possible.
First, I want to say thank you to everyone that gave to make this trip possible for me. I wasn't really sure how I was going to be able to afford it, but I just left it in God's hands, and He really worked things out for me. And after this trip, I felt God pulling me to missions, so that's what I'm going to do. On the funny side, me and Phoebe were the only two American girls in our room at camp with three pretty wacky Romanians. And every night it seemed that one of them would ask, yeah, sleep, sleep, you sleep? And even if you would say yes, they would say no sleep, no sleep. And they would be up till who knows when. And but it was still a lot of fun. I made a lot of new friends, and I really want to go back. And I definitely left a big piece of my heart there.
Our team came in first place, and I liked how they encourage each other doing the activities. And everyone in our group went to different places on a Sunday for dinner at people's houses. And on a toothpick they had a cucumber, pepper, turkey, meat, and ham. And then they gave us soup, mashed potatoes, and chicken, and dessert. And the food was really good. And thank you for making it possible for us to go.
Going to Talpos, Romania was one of the most memorable experiences of my life. On Saturday, we got the opportunity to see the city of Oradea. There were many Orthodox weddings taking place while we were there. Oradea is a beautiful place. On Sunday, we got the chance to attend a Romanian church service. It was a good service, thanks to Sally's translating it for us. Camp started on Monday and lasted till Saturday. A highlight of camp for me was seeing the young people getting spiritual help and minding God. It was interesting to hear Matt's messages in the Romanian language along with the songs. There are a few interesting things that I learned while in Romania. Romanians eat a lot of bread. Civilians like to steal gas out of the ambulance because it is expensive and hard to afford. Hepatitis C is common in the hospitals. Widows dress in black as a symbol of mourning. There is a difference between Romanian people and Americans. Romanians live a simple lifestyle. Americans can get caught up in a fast-paced lifestyle and sometimes don't enjoy the simple things in life. God has richly blessed us, and we should not take anything for granted. Thank you for your prayers and support, which made this missions trip possible. Sally is doing an amazing job in Talpos, and one can tell that her heart is in doing God's work. Thanks again for the opportunity to go to Romania.
Well, I have to say that I enjoyed this trip very much and had a good time, enjoyed being with all the young people over there and seeing the work that Sally's doing. I think that our interesting experiences started on our flight over there. We landed in Berlin about 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were shuttle busing us into the airport terminal, and Brother Matt and Shane and Anna got on a shuttle bus, and the doors shut, and they left. And all of us young people were still left standing out by our airplane, and we didn't think anything about it, really. We got on the next shuttle bus. Well, unfortunately, their shuttle bus made a whole bunch of stops along the way, and our shuttle bus driver was fast, got us to the airport, and we all walk into the terminal, and we're like, all right, we're here now, where's Brother Malloy and Shane and on? And we're like, look all around the airport terminal, and they're not there. And we're like, great, now we're stranded in Berlin, Germany without our sponsors, and now we got to figure out what to do on our own. So we finally started going through the passport checkpoint, and they eventually showed up about 10 minutes later, it seemed like, something like that. Another interesting, kind of funny experience that we had over there, I think one of the girls mentioned about doing laundry. Well, us guys tried doing laundry too, and we didn't have as good of an experience with it. Thanks to Terry, most of our clothes got stained because he decided to put a brilliant blue shirt in with all of ours, and we stained a whole bunch of our white clothes, including Matt's dress shirt. And most of us are still wearing those clothes today with the remnants of Terry's stains on them. But the most interesting part was we put the clothes in the washer, and Romanian washers are different than American washers. And we didn't realize that, I guess after we washed it, we had to turn it onto the spin cycle, and then it would spin, and then we could take the clothes out. So we put the clothes in the washer, and then the handle broke, so we couldn't get the washer open. So Colton Partham was there with a kitchen knife, and he finally pried the washer open. Well, as soon as we got the washer door open, steam just started rolling out of the washer. We're like, man, this is hot. It must be a lot of hot water. So we started pulling the clothes out, and we started like scalding ourselves because the clothes were just steaming hot. So we finally, Levi Muster standing by the washer, Colton standing by the dryer, and I'm standing in between, and we're throwing the clothes as fast as we can from the washer to the dryer between each person to keep from getting burned. And every time the water splashed you, somebody would be like, get majorly scalded. Well, finally we figured out that it never spun out. And so the clothes were sitting in boiling water. We eventually had to actually put them in the sink and rinse them with cold water before we could even put them in the dryer. And then we ran the dryer almost the whole night long, and the clothes were still damp in the morning. So that was a rather interesting experience. Another interesting experience, I think Ruben over here mentioned lizards down in Belize, but we had like salamander type lizards. They were looked like almost like lizards, but I believe they were salamanders over there, and they're about this big. Well, Colton got the brilliant idea of walking around, and he could catch these things real easy, and he'd walk around and put them on the girls' shoulders, and they'd never see them. And they'd walk around for 5 or 10 minutes with this lizard thing sitting on their shoulder, until usually it was me who found them, and I'd look at him and I'd be like, what do you got sitting on your shoulder? And they'd look at both shoulders, and then they'd just let out an ear-piercing scream and start flailing all over the place trying to get it off. So that was pretty fun too. As far as my some highlights of the trip, I enjoyed the youth camp a lot. I enjoyed visiting the children in the orphanage. Highlights of the camp, I think, were the campfires at night. We would just sit around and just talk with the young people, and they would teach us Romanian phrases, and we would teach them things about the United States. We just got to know them, and it was really nice. And I guess another unique thing about the trip is that Clayton Stahl and myself and Terry Yoder, we don't have brothers, but when we went over there, we each somehow, it seemed like we got paired up with this young fellow about our age, and they basically called them our Romanian brothers. And so it's a really neat experience, and I think, well, at least on my part, I've been able to keep in touch. So I enjoyed my trip over there, and Lord willing, if I have an opportunity, I would love to go back. And one of the guys mentioned that, I guess it was Shane Cooper mentioned that the guys, especially Terry and Clayton, were getting hooked up with the girls over there. So if anybody wants pictures of them holding hands, I do have a few.
All right. Let me explain. They were playing a game. At least, no, they were. They really were. Yes, right. They weren't they? Okay, they were. Okay, all right. Well, Romania was an excellent trip. And Sally Sebo is just doing a tremendous job over there ministering to the young people and to the children there. And really, she's been there, I believe, 11 years, maybe 12 years now, ministering there. And so she has very good rapport with just the whole community there in the village that she works in Talpos. And one of the things that was just amazing was the youth camp, being able to go host. Sally hosted, of course, this first ever youth camp for her young people. Included some from the orphanage that were old enough to go, and then some of the kids that she has Bible study with and teaches their Sunday school class there at her church and that are from the village. And And it was great. God just helped us in a special way. Many of the services would end, and or I'd go to give kind of the altar call, so to speak. They didn't have an altar, but gave a time for them to commit their lives to God. And as I would look around, I tell them to bow their head, close their eyes, or whatever. And as I'd look around, many of them, you could tell that God was speaking to their hearts. It was just evident in so many ways. They would cry, and they would just cry and cry and cry. And some of them, throughout the week, they would cry, but yet they wouldn't raise their hand to commit to God. And it was just a sad thing, because I knew that, it was a big crossroads in their life, but they were there, and that God was speaking to them, and yet they weren't yielding to Him. And we did have the first night. Probably it wasn't really till probably the third night until we really started. God started really. We felt like we were getting somewhere. God broke through. There was young people that committed to serving God, and God was just really helping. And then God came in a tremendous way. In the final night of the youth camp, as I gave an invitation to the young people, and they all had their heads bowed, and I just asked them to raise their hand if they were going to commit to serve God and commit their lives to God. And one hand after another went up all around, and it was just tremendous, because God had answered so many people's prayers. You had prayed for our trip. And many people all over the world were praying specifically for this youth camp, and God answered prayer. And I talked with the pastor's son today, and he said that many of the young people, there's a noticeable difference in their lives, that God has changed them, and that they're serving God. Some of them had kind of slipped away from church and weren't attending like they should, but since youth camp, they've come back to church, and they're attending every service, and God is just really helping them. And it was great to see that Sally's efforts, come to fruition, as she's labored there now for 11 years, to see many of the young people that she works with on a weekly basis give their lives to God. It was an incredible thing to be a part of, and God just really helped us. And as was mentioned, God's presence is universal, and He speaks everybody's language. And I was just so glad that when God was settled down, and that He met with us, and He met many needs in the youth camp. It was a trip that impacted my life and impacted the lives of many that are here. And Ashley's report tonight about feeling that God's called her to missions, that's what it's worth. It's worth it all. It's worth it all for the youth missions trips that we go on, the amount of money that we spend. If our young people can catch a vision for this lost world, it's worth it all. And we're so grateful and so thankful for God's help, for your prayers. We just know that God is good. He's just so good to us. And we thank Him and we praise Him for the help that He gave us this summer as we went on those missions trips. They really, in all honesty, were the best missions trips that I've been a part of since I've served here as youth pastor. They just were both tremendously blessed with God's presence, and many victories were won as a result. And we just thank the Lord, and we praise Him that we were just able to be vessels in His hands, that He was able to use our simple, feeble efforts for His honor and His glory, and that so much good came out of the trips. And we thank Him and we praise Him most of all. At this time, the group is coming to sing a final song, and so if they'll make their way to the risers at this time.